Good morning to you and welcome. Well, it's Sunday morning. It's a day for rejoicing. And at the end of the chapter that has become our church's chapter, Isaiah 61, in the last two verses 10 and 11, it's what we should be doing every day, but especially on a Sunday. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall exult in my God, for he has clothed me with the garments of salvation. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness. That wonderful, wonderful thought. It's all his doing. It's all his doing. There's no effort required on our part. This is the most wonderful thing. The only thing we have to do is rejoice and enjoy the Lord. Rejoice in the Lord. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. A thought flashed through my head, and I remember years and years ago when I was attending a certain church on Easter Sunday morning. It was actually, and Easter Sunday, of all the days of the year, just fills me with such joy over what God has done for us, the victory that he's gained over death, and what his resurrection means, and the fact that he's alive and not dead. And I was beaming all over my face throughout the service, and I was already training to do some kind of Christian ministry, and someone in the congregation there said to me, "You're not going to get very far. You don't take your religion seriously enough." And I must admit, I just didn't know where to put myself. I just thought it was so funny, because there is so much in the Bible about joy and about rejoicing and about, the worst thing that can ever happen to us is that we die and go to glory, which is so much better than what we have here. What we have here is a shadow. And if this incredibly beautiful place, and all these wonderful creatures and plants and the sky, and the sun and the sky and everything we know about the wonder of the world we live in, if this is a shadow, what is the reality like? When you think about a shadow compared to the real thing, the shadow is colourless and just an outline, but the reality is full of colour, and it is the real thing. And if the worst that can ever happen to us is that we die and we go to heaven, it's, we have so much. He has clothed me. He's clothed you with garments of salvation. We are magnificently robed. Everything. We've got the wedding garment. Jesus talked about the people going to a wedding needing a wedding garment. He provided it. It's given to us. It's all done. He's covered me with a robe of righteousness. We don't have to. We don't go in our righteousness. It is his righteousness. Isaiah foresaw it all, and he rejoiced. This is wonderful. This is something to be thankful for every single day of our lives, that we have so much in God through Jesus. As a bridegroom decks himself with a garland, and as a bride adorns herself with jewels. When you go to a wedding, you wear the best of everything, and the bride and the bridegroom are the most magnificently dressed of all. They stand out, and they just beauty there, just everything. And that's what God has clothed us like. We're the centre of the scene. We're what he did it for. We've been looking a lot at Psalm 23, and someone who was in the study group we were in was saying that the shepherd's sheep were his investment. They were his livelihood. They were the thing that he put all his energy into. They were of infinite value to him. They were all he had, the shepherd. From them came everything. I've never thought of us as an investment of God. He has invested his own son in us. He has invested his covenant in us. He has given us everything. And all we have to do is accept it and receive it and rejoice in it. And I think as much as the charismatic movement, as much as the infilling of the Spirit and everything, the facts of our salvation make us want to jump up and down in joy and pleasure. Terry was watching and I was watching part of a football match yesterday and the day before that was broadcast live with empty stadium, except for a handful of people. In this lockdown, they can't have the crowds there, but they had the crowd sound around the stadium, so it sounded like there were thousands of people there cheering and shouting and chanting and singing and making a lot of noise, and they seemed to be able to put on a cheer when they almost scored a goal, as if the people were really there. I don't know how they did it. It was all very clever. But I thought, again, if we're allowed to get excited when our football team nearly scores a goal, why would we think we can't get excited when we think about what Jesus has done for us and what God has given us? We have reason to jump up and down, ecstatic with joy, and we must never get used to the idea that we are saved. It is the most amazing miracle that has ever been performed on this earth. When Jesus came, he changed everything for good, and he changed us when we came to faith. And it says in verse 11, as the earth brings forth its shoots, and as the garden causes what is sown in it to spring up, so the Lord God will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all the nations. We need to let people around us see the joy that we have in the Lord, and not to moan about this lockdown time, but to rejoice in the presence of God, even in this time, this season. He's not left us, he's with us, and we have good reason to rejoice today. We have every reason to rejoice. Whatever's going on in your life, the fact that you are saved and that you are clothed in righteousness is always something to rejoice in, because you don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. It's a given. It's a gift given at the cost of the life of Jesus, and it's something we have reason to be thankful for. Have a great Sunday. I hope you're going to join a group to worship somewhere on Zoom today, or listen into something. There's a lot on the internet now that we can join in all around the world. So there's no excuse for us not to go to church, today. It's Sunday. We can worship. And even if we don't, we can worship in our own homes as we lift his name high on this day that celebrates his resurrection. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.